Ireland is at an energy crossroads, and here in the west, in County Galway, the old ways can be found down pretty much every country lane. The peat boggers, who heat their homes as their ancestors did for centuries, by burning blocks of turf.
That's black gold, we call that. Huh? How hard it is.
We're here to see if, as renewable energy arrives, they're ready to douse their fires and sit comfortably and warmly alongside their new non-polluting neighbours.
We're trying to close down the bogs, which is absolutely ridiculous, without a viable option for people who use turf to heat their homes.
Because an energy revolution is being planned for Ireland, and the question is, can the traditional survive in this technological age? And where we get a lesson in how to run a car on hydrogen taken out of water.
One day, this sort of system could solve the world's energy problems.
We certainly see it as a major piece of the solution.
Welcome to Beyond Borders.
How are you doing? You're all very welcome here today to my farm. My name is Sha Ward. I'm a livestock farmer here in the south of Roscommon in the west of Ireland. There are two speckled parks there, the two black and white ones. This is my little limousine bull calf, and that's my roan shorthorn bull. He's a 5-star.
On Sha Ward's farm, he and his family have for generations used peat to heat their homes.
My wood burning stove and turf.
Does that burn as well as wood?
It'll burn wood, it'll burn pure black gold. We call this black gold, because that's what it is, black gold. While I have turf, I'll burn it in that.
And if they take it away, you can't use it?
They get it very hard to take it away. Very, very hard. Because it's in our life, you know.
When it's cut, it's soaking wet, and there's a skill to removing all the moisture.
I have been going to the bog now for 54 years. Never missed a year since the age of 6. And this is our heritage. You can get a few more and you can put them around the edge like this, build it up. Once it's standing, turned and the breeze blows in and out through it, you have it, build it up again. And as the man says, the job is oxo. So you stay going with like that for 100 yards on each row. This is the cheapest form of fuel, and it's what we know.
Would you say turf is a family affair?
Oh yeah.
It's
God, yeah.
It's our heritage.
That's black gold.
My father brought me to the bog, as I said, when I was a gossoon, and in the morning, and he forgot about you until the evening.
Just a few miles from Sean's farm is the Carrownagpull Living Bog. It's reclaimed turf, now a conservation area.
We have a family of deer here every year. You can see them running across. And in May, it's a mass of bog cotton. It's like white. It's nearly like snow. The bog is filled with it, and then it turns to heather, the purple heather. People are educated now, and they see all the programs on TV, and they know how important it is, the climate change. And it's definitely for the next generation and generation after. We're very proud here to be doing our little bit.
40 different types of birds and butterflies have returned since the turf cutting stopped. Maura's late father was a peat bogger here. She says he would be appalled at how the old habits are disappearing. 1,000 acres of peat bog, and it is boggy. You can hear me squelching through here, pretty sure of that. But it's not being cut for turf anymore, peat turf, the sods that they have, it's now being regenerated. When they decided to do that back in 2011, 150 people who'd seen this land pass down through the generations were told that from midnight one night they wouldn't be able to cut it anymore. And my word, did that cause one heck of a row. Former Agriculture Minister Paul Connaughton was a turf cutter and farmer, and remembers how in his youth this land was 2 metres higher than it is now. He helps run what's called the living bog.
If you were here in a few years' time, if we had been cutting, that'd be down lower than it is now. But I saw it that height over.
So when you were a little boy, it was up to...
Up there, yeah. Basically how we knew that, you couldn't actually see the perimeter at all. You couldn't see them trees because the bog was up like that. So it's nothing short of a miracle if we're actually able to rehabilitate it. But the scientists tell us with what we have now done, every single hectare in that 1,000 acres, all the drains were blocked. It's what they call re-wetted. And there's no water leaving this huge estate at all now. And basically what's happening, everybody knows what heather is. But there's a sphagnum moss, the white stuff that's there. Basically what happens that when it gets real wet, that grows at a tremendous space every year and then dies. Dies back, and the same thing will happen the year after, and layer after layer after layer until it comes up here. That's what the scientists tell us, and I'm in no position to know what will happen because I won't be around that time.
So that's how the peat bogs were formed all those years ago.
Correct,
It's what you hope will happen again.
Yeah.
Do you feel a little bit of sympathy for people who, like you, once used to look on this as a way of life?
Oh yeah, I make no secret at all of that. I would, all my life, in fact in my political life, I often spoke about it in the National Assembly, that we should be allowed to keep cutting turf for as long as we were alive. But you see, things change in a big way. And who'd ever thought that you could fence off your farm now the way we are doing it with solar? Who'd ever thought that you could put a few those gigantic, what you call it, panels up on a roof and to boil the kettle for you and all that kind of thing. All that wasn't there at that time. For oldish people now, and there are a few, they're obviously dying out, they would still love to think that they could go over and cut a day's work of turf, save it and bring it home and sit down by the fire on a cold winter's night.
Those who gave up their patches after the minor revolt, 120 out of the 150, were given €1,500 a year for 15 years.
We've spoken to farmers and turf cutters who say what they do every day will make no difference to climate change. They are very, very small fry in all of this. They look at aeroplanes taking off. They say that's the culprit. They say they're being picked on because they're easy targets.
No, the problem with all this, and it isn't hard to disagree with that, except to say that because of the huge problem we now face, everything counts.
And change is coming, not a day too soon, say those opposed to this ancient practice.
Maybe Dutch people wore clogs at one time, but you don't wear them now. You might put them up and put them in a picture and say, look, this is part of our tradition and we're proud of it, absolutely. But you don't wear clogs now because they're not practical, they don't make sense, and we've moved on. And I think you say exactly the same thing with turf. We used it once upon a time when it was our only alternative. Now we know better. Most of the peat boglands in Europe have been destroyed and are lost. Ireland has some of the few remaining intact or semi-intact boglands anywhere in Europe. Now, peat bogs are havens of biodiversity. So in a country like Ireland, they are the equivalent of our rainforests in terms of biodiversity. What we need to be doing, and we are doing, is transitioning away from burning of solid fuels, whether they're coal or peat, and towards instead insulating our homes, replacing energy sources like peat and like oil and gas, replacing them with heat pumps and so on. The Irish government is putting significant funding into retrofitting, for example. Deep retrofits, there's huge supports available. They could be better, of course they could. But I think the key thing really is that peat is a lousy fuel. For example, if you burn peat domestically, what you're doing basically is you're creating air pollution inside your house, and you're also creating air pollution for your neighbours.
But still, the cutting continues.
The government are going to have to come up with something if they're going to stop people cutting. We've been at this for centuries, you know. This is our third generation. We're the third generation at this. My father and his father before him, you know, we all cut turf. This is where it came from. The digger comes right up to the edge here, and it takes from, scoops in, the machine is here for the spreading.
After it comes out of here,
Yeah.
in a big lump,
He takes it, the digger would take, which is part of that,
dump it.
no, into the machine. And the machine will move up along the bank and spread all that out in lines.
Can you see how long it's been going on for?
Yeah, and the fact that over the years, the water will eventually, when you have all the turf taken, the water starts seeping in.
And then you're just left with bogland.
Bogland, yes.
Is there something sentimental about it, Tommy?
Of course there is, yes.
It's not just that
It's like losing part of your heritage. If we lose it, yes.
And you think you will?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. Because I don't think we're going to have any, say, the EU directive, I think, is stating it, you know. That boglands are going to be protected.
And so, from old to new. Galway University is researching the best way to remove hydrogen from water and use it as a fuel. We get a very simple chemistry lesson.
Electricity is coming from, it's collecting a little bit of sunlight, daylight from this room here. It's going into the electrolyzer. The electricity is splitting the water into hydrogen molecules, oxygen molecules. The hydrogen molecules are traveling through this pipe, and they're going to fill up the little hydrogen storage in the car. The oxygen molecules, you can see bubbles coming out the top here. That's the oxygen molecules being released to the atmosphere. What we're most interested in here in Ireland is what we call green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is where the electricity source that we use to make the hydrogen comes from a renewable source. We could just as easily disconnect these cables from the solar panel and plug it into the wind turbine. Obviously, we'd need something to make that turbine spin. But on a big scale here in Ireland, in the UK, all across Europe, we have got huge wind resources. The problem is when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, how do you store large quantities of energy from the times when it is available? And so with a system like hydrogen, you can store that energy for very, very long periods of time, up to months. We're recombining the hydrogen and oxygen molecules and getting electricity back out. We're getting some of the electricity that we put in here is coming back out. We're not getting it all back.
So it doesn't catch fire, it's not combustion.
It doesn't catch fire, it's very, very safe.
It's reverse electrolysis.
It's reverse electrolysis, and the device that does this inside the car is called a fuel cell.
You see, one of the questions that people sometimes say or ask is hydrogen. For goodness sake, look what happened to the Hindenburg.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
It just went up.
Yeah.
So in this case, storing hydrogen, is it any less dangerous, or is it any more safe, or whatever?
There's always hazards associated with combustible gases like this, but research is beginning to show now that hydrogen is no more or no less dangerous than petrol or diesel or natural gas. It's just got different sets of risks associated with it.
We need to give it something to grip onto, so let's put it onto that piece of paper.
Give it a road
and
surface.
should I just start it now?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Back.
So it's not going to break any land speed records, but it's demonstrating the principle.
At the port of Galway, one of the many parts of one of the many wind turbines yet to be assembled is being unloaded. New energy for a new renewable future in a port that will be transformed.
The area in which you're looking now, which is thankfully very busy with shipping this morning, that would be redeveloped into a new urban quarter, 17 acres of prime land in the heart of Galway City with access to the sea for the people of Galway and tourists.
It's the green side of it that gets you going, isn't it?
Very much so. And I think demonstrate that in a number of ways. I think firstly we're extraordinarily proud of our contribution to onshore wind, which has been a great success in Ireland. And you'll see there the
They're
ship
unloading
that's
it, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, unloading its turbines saying that's a very significant 100 megawatt project that we're just after starting. But when that's completed, we'll have done about 600 megawatts to the port, which is an extraordinarily significant contribution. And since we started that activity in 2014, I think represents approximately 20% of Irish onshore renewable deployment, which is very exciting. Hydrogen is very interesting, and I suppose from our perspective, our plans for hydrogen would be to site a hub here for local distribution, and that would be the plan. So here and
that would run the local buses, the local taxis, the local everything.
Exactly. I'm not quite sure about taxis. They may be electrified. We have seen hydrogen schemes for taxis, but I think long-range coaches and commercial trucking would maybe be first users, would be an obvious one, and then over time maybe one could see, you know, some small boats, etc., and ferries being powered by hydrogen over time. But from our perspective, it's very much local distribution, which we think would be our sweet spot in terms of hydrogen.
Still a dream, or can you see it actually happening?
No, absolutely not. I think from our perspective, in terms of the new port, you know, we're in an advanced stage in the planning process. I think there's a growing awareness at EU and government level of the importance of port infrastructure in the context of renewable energy. So as I said, this concept of ports as renewable hubs is really, I think, very much to the forefront of the policy agenda.
And in Dublin, they are already running 4 buses on the gas.
So when we open this panel here, first of all, you can see there are 5 tanks here, all stacked one above the other.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. That's the hydrogen.
That's the containers for the hydrogen. That's where it's contained. And then as you drive along, the fuel stack sucks in the oxygen. It marries the two together, and the fusion of these two gases creates enough electricity to keep your high voltage.
And there's the big battery there.
That's your big battery pack.
Hydrogen, very explosive. How safe is that?
That is very safe. These containers are tested to 6 Gs of forces. You have reinforcement here should there be any rare impact. So there are 2 little vents that the caps will come off. So for any emergency work, for maintenance work, they can release the hydrogen if it was necessary, or in the event of some kind of an emergency.
Is this the future?
This is the future. It is a place like everything else. It has a place in the future. For long distance commercial activity, certainly there's great potential for hydrogen. But for us, for this sector, we have EV vehicles, total EVs, which need to be charged, and then you're spending your battery all day long. Whereas with this, you're producing. This is a self-sufficient EV, so you're generating your own electricity as you travel along. And then when you run out of hydrogen, you should have enough charge to get you to a nearby location. And this particular manufacturer gives us an estimate of 30 kilometres unladen mileage.
Amazing.
And then your top-up fuel time is approximately 9 minutes. So that it's quite comparable with the fill of diesel.
It looks like the best solution for some very difficult problems. Difficult problems of industries and activities that are hard to decarbonise, like transport and industry. And also the big problem with renewable power of how do you store a lot of it for a time when there's no wind and no sun.
And hydrogen's easy to store.
With the right equipment, it is easy to store. Potential is huge. You can see here the potential for transport is amazing. We have an almost silent bus that's only producing water and no carbon produced at any stage. It can also be used for freight, possibly for trains, ultimately for aviation, shipping, heavy industry, things that are very hard to do with electricity, where at the moment we have to use fuel. You can use hydrogen instead.
And the only emission, water. So pure, they say, you can drink it. Whether that's true, we shall see.
Which, since I'm still here and able to write these words, would seem to suggest that it is. clean, clear and safe. We're crossing the water now to Inishmore, one of the Aran Islands, and where large parts of the movie The Banshees of Inisherin were filmed.
This ferry, along with all the others out to the islands, runs on diesel. One day, they hope to convert the entire fleet to hydrogen that comes from water. And there's plenty of that around here.
It is a wildlife wonderland where the passing visitors and the islanders themselves have a stake in a new approach to producing power without pollution. Old homes have been properly insulated, electricity provided here by solar panels, heating from an air source heat pump. But it is expensive, 50,000 euros they say, for each house. Fiona Belton lives in what's known as the Eco Lodge, the home of tomorrow, but remembers her yesterdays when she brought coal and diesel to the Inishmore harbour on board a cargo vessel called Gulmarn that they'd saved from the ocean floor.
Well, that's me and Alan now when we were doing up the Gulmarn in the coal harbour in Dunleary. So we'd raised her up from the bottom. And then our dream was to sail around the world. So we got as far as the Aran Islands anyway. And well, on the Gulmarn, yeah.
Even with Gulmarn, there wasn't always power.
Oh, well, if we didn't make it, if we didn't get, in a storm or something with weather, there would be no electricity because we're bringing diesel for the generators and coal for the ranges and the stoves and fires, which was heat.
Today, she prefers to look forward rather than back.
It's ready for another change now, that we really should be generating our own power because the technology is there to do that now, as a community and benefit from it as a community as well.
And what does Aran want to show to the rest of Ireland by doing that?
Well, how it's done, if it could be so bold to say. But, with the support, that's what there's an energy co-op here, and a group of people, that are striving for that, to work at that. So that's been in existence now for, it's over 10 years now. Must be 11.
And the aim is what?
To generate our own green energy as a community, community owned, for the benefit of the community and for clean energy as well.
Wouldn't it be easy just to stay as you are?
But that isn't going into the future, and then it's it's dependency. And for the country itself, it does make sense that communities empower themselves with generating their own power.
But there are obstacles.
What are you doing that's different?
I think the fact that the people themselves are more involved with the different organisations we have. We have the main cooperative, development cooperative, which has been working since, as I said, since 1974. And
the local energy cooperative wants to run the island's recycling plant on hydrogen. It is all set up, but there are local objections, we're told. Add that to the list of frustrations, says Michael Gill.
One of the problems in Ireland at the moment is that all of those grants that are available, it makes sense for any government to put funding into it to cut down on the importation of fuel.
But they're putting it into the bigger picture, not small places like this,
Well,
and that's why it's so slow here.
The small places are included as well, but it's just...
But back of the queue.
Not really.
That's what they tell us.
Maybe a bit, but we
have been pushing it ourselves, and we've kept it up to the front, and really we feel like we're leaders in the whole thing. And especially
leaders by example, but not necessarily
thinking.
leaders in terms of getting the money and the priority.
I know, well that's true, I suppose, but we're getting there, we'll be positive.
Those promoting green energy, not just in Ireland but around the world, would have us believe that theirs is the only way forward, and that turf cutting and peat burning, however much they may be missed by some, are destined to become fossil fuels.